Sometimes cheap and expensive items are the same thing, the only difference being the brand name. What are some examples of this? In the UK, there was news stories about a man finding another brand of chips in a multi-pack. This made national news. I used to work food packaging for Kroger. Roasted peanuts, dry oatmeal flavored or unflavored, cereal, chips. When we changed from store brand to branded items, we would stop the line and change the box and the package. The food is the same. I used to work for a manufacturing machinery company. You'll be surprised how many food and pet food producers make supermarket-owned brands. Yup, worked as a cleaner for a major UK bread brand when I was a kid. Loaves went down 3 different conveyors into our slicers, each conveyor ending in a different brand's packaging. One of our own, and the other 2 being budget brands. Same bread, same recipe, baked on the same day, in the same oven, priced differently depending on packaging. ZzzQuil is at least a 200% markup from Benadryl. The only active ingredient in ZzzQuil is a 25 mg of diaphragmhydramine, where Benadryl is also 25 mg of diaphragmhydramine. You guys should see the stuff we deal with in the medical field. I wanted to get a mesh metal glove to protect myself when using a saw during autopsy. Our medical supplier, Fisher Scientific, sold the hospital a medical graded chainmail glove for $300. They forgot to take the Base Pro Shops tag off. It was a $12 glove for cleaning fish. Champion does this so much. They have like cheap Champion and the pricier one. Champion literally used to be crap and you get made fun of for wearing it, and now all hyped up, but you can still find a Champion shirt for less than $10. Kirkland brand. 1 bear of 81 mg for aspirin is $24.99 for 365 tablets, while Kirkland 85 mg aspirin is $4.99 for 365 tablets. The same active ingredients, big price difference. Generic versus name brand medicine. My wife works at a pharmacy. She let me know gently about always going for the cheaper stuff because it's the same thing. And my letting me know gently, I mean she called me an idiot. All medicines will contain a product license number which is unique to each type of medication, but for the same medicines are identical regardless of packaging or branding. So when buying them, cross-check the product license numbers. You'll often find the cheaper drug are identical to the expensive ones. The product license for some paracetamols is a PL12063 regardless of whenever it costs $1 or $10. I worked in a pancake factory. The only difference between the name brand and off-brand pancakes was a little metal arm flipping back and forth to ensure every other pancake of the same bakery line made it to the name brand or off-brand packaging line. In other words, no freaking difference. Supermarket spices cost twice as much for 1/3 of the amount when compared to packages in shops of ethnic minorities. I grew up black in a very South Asian community, so the idea of paying $2.50 for a tiny bottle of Schwartz when a full bag is 89 cents, just no. I don't know exact brands, but I would say anything identified as for men versus for women. I am female and buy men deodorant and razors. They're both cheaper and the same exact product, just black versus pink most of the time. Conversely, when I was buying an electric toothbrush, the same exact model and pink was $10 cheaper than the blue one. Same with my kettle actually. The pink one was $5 cheaper than the blue one. So I've got a quite nice pink collection coming on. Aquarium nerds will know this one, silicone. Aquariums are usually held together with silicone, and silicone is just 100% silicone. So generally predictable products no matter who makes it, except many brands for kitchen and bathroom ceilings have added chemicals to keep mildew from growing on the cured silicone. This is a big no-no for aquariums since it will basically poison and kill your aquarium pets. So you got to read the ingredients and information carefully to make sure it's not anti-mildew or anything dubious added. Or you can pay double or triple for a pack of silicone with a big aquarium brand stamp. Hydro Flask. You can get those bottles unbranded straight from China for just a few dollars. Yeti is the same. I brought a tumbler on Amazon for $12, and one day I compared it to a coworker's Yeti tumbler, and they were identical. The only difference we could find was his had Yeti stamped on it, and mine had nothing. Even the lids fit on his. They were probably made in the same factory in China, just one got stamped and thus cost 3 times more. I was in a shop looking at laptop bags and there were two brands right next to each other that were exactly the same dimensions, color, materials, padding and everything, except one was almost twice the price than the other. I have worked in a pawn shop for 7 years now. We test everything that comes in, so I heard every kind of headphones and speakers imaginable. One day I went to test a pair of cheap on Bluetooth earbuds. They sounded better than the Beats earbuds. At the next meeting, I blindfolded 5 employees and had them listen to the same 2 sets, same song, same volume, same phone, same everything. They all agreed that the second option, the on set, sounded way better than the first set, the Beats. When the test was over, they were astonished. A brand name doesn't mean crap. Sometimes cheaper that can do the same thing will come along and might actually kick butt. The moral of the story is that a brand name is just a logo on a sticker. At the end of the day, it just comes down to having a solid construction and liking the sound. Great Value dishwasher detergent and Cascade. GV is literally the same but more diluted. I won't skip on Dawn though. A lot of clothing. Most of it is made in the same sweatshops in China or Bangladesh. The only difference is the name on the label. True, but some brands have higher standards of quality control. Nike might have them expected for quality before shipping to stores, while generic brands might not. Printer paper. I used to work in a factory that cut the paper down to size. We would load up the packaging material for said staples, do our run of that, then switch packaging to the generic packaging without switching the bulk paper out. The plain white package holds literally the same as staple brands, but the brand name is expensive. If we're talking about plain generic printer copy paper, sure. Beyond that, there are significant differences in paper. Any designers that have worked in print, especially pressmen, know this. I'll tell you one example, it isn't. Oreos. I'm an avid generic product user. I stay away from brand names where possible. But man, if Oreos only taste like Oreos. When I finally started making okay money, I had the great idea of shopping at nicer stores than Walmart. My family would always tell me I needed to shop at Fred Meyer's. It's so much better quality items. I'm in the clothing section at Fred Meyer's looking at socks and whatnot. I see a packet of Loom, $18.99. The exact same kind I was buying at Walmart for $8.99. I was in shock. Why would I shop here? It's the same crap just marked up. I'm not trying to hype a Walmart. I know they're a terrible company, but at least you're not getting charged $10 more for the same low quality stuff. They're probably getting the stuff from the exact same supplier at that. Be careful though. No clue about clothing, but for electronics and tools, Walmart had contracts where they can use the same nameplates of items sold in other stores, yet have them specifically made with less quality to be cheaper for Walmart only. There are some things sold by Walmart and Sam's Club that are not the same as they sold everywhere else. I had a KitchenAid mixer that needed a replacement beater, and the KA customer service told me that the model was the Walmart version and it didn't match the actual KA version, so I had to order a different beater. A lot of products are cheap for big box stores. Do you think you're buying a John Deere at Home Depot or Lowe's? The dealer versions cost more but are better. At the big box stores, you are buying a cheaper engine and JD Green paint on the outside. A lot of makeup and skincare. They're owned by the same umbrella companies and are created in the same labs. Mostly, the main difference is the terms of packaging. 180 brands are owned by just 7 companies: Estée Lauder companies, L'Oreal, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Shiseido, Johnson & Johnson, and Conti. The worst part about makeup is that it's all about trial and error. Even your most favorite and trusted brands can release something that will make you wish to rip your face off. And sometimes, you get a deal of a century for a dream product for $1. But then, of course, they discontinue it or change the formula and the search begins again. And I am one of the lucky ones with no skin conditions and able to use basically everything. Canadian no-name brand. No-name chips, no-name pops, no-name hot cocoa powder. No name is god dang it treasure. Their pizza pockets are great too. I'm literally never had anything bad come out of a no-name box. Years ago, I was on a similar thread and found that melamine sponges are the same thing as Mr. Clean magic erasers. So I hopped on AliExpress and bought 300 of them for a few bucks at 3am. I totally forgot that I've done it until it showed up 6 weeks later. My wife was really confused. They do work great though, and now we'll never run out. Dasani water is just bottled tap water. Most bottled water is, really. In the UK, they tried to release Dasani and news that it was just bottled tap water spread quickly. The release failed miserably. Despite that, and the revelation that most of the water in the store are this way, other bottled water sells fine. I used to work for Duracell. Duracell and Walgreen brand batteries are the same. Saw it on YouTube. They showed a part of a Mini Cooper that cost €350. The same exact part was sold by Peugeot for only €70. Bosch is a great example of this. Many parts of German cars are made by Bosch. They stamped with a BMW or Mercedes logo and resold for twice the price. Same with a number of other German part manufacturers. Always look up the OEM part manufacturer for whatever part you need because it's literally the exact same thing, just cheaper because you're cutting out the middleman. Games Workshop shade paints, they're basically just normal oil paints that are extremely thinned down that is put into a pot and put the Cynodol name on it for the brand name to justify its expensive price. Retired truck driver here. I often picked up cans of soup for various big retailers. I'll be picking up generic and name brands at the same manufacturing plant. Same soup, same cans, just a different label wrapped around them. Brands like Campbell's will produce generic soup right along their own brand. The proportions will be a bit different, but the same plant will produce the same soup for 3 or 4 different off-brands as well as their own. At least Campbell's change up their formula a bit. Meat packers don't. A meat packer will produce its own brand plus 1 or 2 off-brands, but it's exactly the same meat from the same plant, processed exactly the same. No variation whatsoever. The only difference coming from a meatpacking plant is the shipping and handling instructions. Some brands insist the meat not be frozen. Others want it frozen, solid like a rock. But the worst offenders are the organic industry. The definition of organic in the US allows for stuff that is definitely not anyone's idea of organic. Organic produce will tend to be smaller than its non-organic counterpart and often with natural blemishes you normally don't see on regular produce. If it looks exactly like the non-organic counterpart, it probably is not really organic at all. Big telltale is if it's the same size. You don't dump a crap ton of pesticides and fertilizers on produce and not get bigger produce. I used to work in a supermarket. Those Ferrero Raffaello coconut balls were freaking expensive. There were cheaper brands that literally tasted the same. Also, Mounds chocolate was more expensive than the Bounty. I don't know why, but they tasted the same to me. My supervisor always insisted on putting cheaper brands near expensive ones. His logic, they are the same kind of product, so they should be found in the same place. What would usually happen is people would take the cheaper brand and the expensive ones would just expire on the shelves. Sparkling water like LaCroix is so expensive. Liquor, get the Kirkland Signature Vodka. It's apparently from the same factory as Grey Goose. I think an easy way to see this when you see a product recall and its affects so many brands of the same atom. Examples that I can think of includes peanut butter and car airbags. Milk. I was in Walmart looking at milk and an old man stopped me. He said he retired from the dairy industry. He told me the same milk plant from the same cows filled different colored cartons from the same batch. He tapped his nose and winked and said, all the same crap. The checkout lady did this for me. I was buying Prairie Farms and she stopped me to let me know the store brand was owned by the same company and filled at the same time. Since I am a QC chemist, I immediately switched to the cheaper one. I know in our plant that means the same material, different label. Girl Scout cookies. I've noticed that some grocery stores carry cookies with different names, maybe different shapes, but parallel to the Girl Scout cookies. From a green box of chocolate mint cookies to a yellow box of shortbread cookies with lemon icing. Probably Girl Scout Mafia will come after me for this post. Prairie Farms milk in the Midwest uses the same name brand milk when it produces Walmart's Great Value and Target brand milk. I work for an eyeglass distributor. Almost all designer eyeglasses are made from just a handful of manufacturers that also make the no-name cheap ones. The only manufacturing difference between the $20 frames and lenses and the $1,000 ones is the label put at the end. Candles. I used to work at a candle factory that made brand name candles and generic. The only difference was the label. Same wax, same wick, same jar, half the price. Leica cameras are mostly made by Panasonic. Aside from the optics, the same camera will appear in both of their lines. The difference are cosmetic and a minor functional change, but a Panasonic LX100 II costs around $500. The LX equivalent D-Lux 7 is around $1,000. At least back in the mid-90s, when I worked in a meat processing factory, the only difference between Marks & Spencer's sliced meat and the rest of the country was that we switched out the labels and had a slightly stricter quality control. It all came from the same animal and was processed on the same production line. They used to do this all the time with cars. The Lincoln Town Car, for instance, was just a fancy Ford Crown Victoria. For years, Payless shoes were made in the same Chinese factories as Nike and Reebok, using most of the same materials, but made with cheaper adhesive and materials. My summer shoes were always Payless shoes. Within 3 weeks of summer, they were falling apart. My mom said that I was too hard on them and I should take better care of them. At that point, I usually started wearing the shoes I started wearing at the start of school, or the ones I got for Christmas, depending on how my feet grew, and it lasted all summer. From around 14 years old, my mom stopped going cheap on my summer shoes and let me get a pair of clearance Nike or Adidas from East Bay or any brick and mortar store. Polo and Ralph Lauren. Seriously, a white shirt costs at most $50 in my currency. The same shirt with a dang horse suit on it costs more than $200 of said currency. It seems like merchandise by the brand Supreme fits very well as an example over here. Most Supreme products aren't expensive, they're exclusive. They make limited numbers of certain styles and only offer to people who register with them. Then the resellers mark them up to extreme prices. I used to work in a factory making car parts for German cars. From 6 to 10, we were putting Audi labels on the boxes that were coming on the production line. And from 10 to 14, we were putting Mercedes labels on the same boxes, and obviously, the Mercedes parts were almost 1.5 times more expensive.